Stuart, I have a question. Bob Sink.
Yes, well,
In part two of the Tantra series, you wrote you were speaking about mental, emotional, and sexual encumbrances, and I've never heard what do you mean by sexual encumbrances?
encumbrances are things that interfere with your progress.
So can you elaborate on that?
Well, there's so many things, there's so many experiences we have that are based on negative things that are obstructions to our growth, tests that we have as human beings. These are encumbrances. These are things that we have to work against. We have to be able to overcome inside ourselves in order to move on. Now, I don't see these things as negative things. I just see them as opportunities to grow and opportunities to learn about what we have to do to move on and how to get stronger than the things that are blocking us. They're great teachers, these encumbrances, if we let them be. If, as most people do, they become a reason to run away, to get unhappy, to beat themselves up, then it becomes something that really destroys the potential for their growth. It becomes a negative experience. But if you look at it as an opportunity to truly get stronger, you need to grow inside so you can dissolve these obstructions, these encumbrances, these things that are testing you on whether or not you want to continue your growth in life. Then it's no longer a negative experience. It's something that's showing you exactly what you have to do inside yourself in order to grow. So, I write a lot about that, mostly because I don't think anyone is going to have a spiritual life until they learn how to develop a chakra system, inside themselves that really allows them to, first of all, elevate their consciousness to a very high level of what it means to be a human being. Elevate their consciousness to this deeper sense, and Rudy said, this deeper sense of surrender that we, by the use of our will and our mind and our breath, by developing a chakra system in ourselves, we can overcome anything. If it interferes with our spiritual growth. And that is the beginning of recognizing what's real and what's an illusion. What's real is what helps you to grow. Sometimes these are really difficult, obstructionist type situations that teach you how to really work on yourself and get stronger inside. And as I say, most people, when this type of thing happens, they run for the hills. And I can guarantee you that in this meditation, these kind of things will happen because there isn't a person alive that these obstructions, these encumbrances aren't buried deep inside them. They have to come to the surface. When they come to the surface, it's not the time to run. It's a time to truly recognize that they're there to teach us that we need to go deeper. We need to really open in a much deeper place so we can finally flush these things out of our system. And as I say, everybody, well, most people have the idea that spiritual, meditation and all that, it just, it's all about peacefulness. And it's not all about that. It's about learning how to grow. It's about learning how to master yourself. It's about learning about who and what the enemy is inside you. And then being strong enough to slay the dragon so that you can truly move on and these things will no longer be encumbrances to your growth. Otherwise, we just live under kind of a superficial veneer of spirituality. And that's one of the things I always had a really hard time with in ashrams and places like that, that superficial veneer of spirituality, where beneath that veneer, there's usually a Pandora's box of strange and unruly unhappinesses, in people. And people coat themselves with this kind of veneer of spirituality, and it's not real. I mean, Rudy used to call them hors d'oeuvres, I mean, it was really very funny. He used to talk about those kind of people. They were like hors d'oeuvres to him. So I'm not putting that down. I'm just saying that that is not the answer. The answer is freeing oneself of repressed tension, of anxiety, of fear, of all these things that are so deeply buried inside people. Sometimes we carry them from lifetime to lifetime, and finally getting free of them, where we can experience what would be real inner peace, not a coating of veneer of some kind of spiritual thing, but really our system has worked to free ourselves of the things that were truly keeping us from having inner peace.
Thank you, sir. Very good.
You're welcome, Mark. I mean, you look at Rudy, he was the sweetest. I mean, there was such sweetness and love that came out of him. But if you stuck your hand inside him, it would be burnt alive. I mean, the fire was extraordinary in him. And out of it came this sweetness. It transformed his tension into love, into sweetness, into joy, into, absolutely a pleasure to be around him. And I said to myself years ago, if I learn anything in this life, it has to be how to do that. Because I had a lot of tension. I still have tension, and I still have to do it. He had tension. He had to do it. As long as we're alive on this planet, there's going to be tension. But we have an incredible craft that he left to us, Rudy. And we can use that craft to transform all that tension into sweetness, into love, into peace, into happiness. It's like incense, that delicious smell comes out of fire. So, one doesn't bullshit around with themselves by applying, I'm a vegetarian, I'm a this, I'm a that, It doesn't work. Ultimately, I remember one day when Rudy got back from India and he finally decided that he had to break with Muktananda because it was just too much. He said to me, I deserve more. And I said, you're right, you deserve more. I'll never forget when I was sitting there and he came, he'd been back one day and he sat down next to me and he said, Stuart, ultimately you'll discover one thing. Everybody is in it alone. Ultimately, there is us and God. And all we do here is build a system that enables us to be strong enough to be us and God, each and every one of us and God. And once we overcome that fear, that encumbrance, I mean, look, we're home free. You can run for a touchdown, I mean, look, you've gotten through the masses and the pack and the. And that's what each and every one of us are here to do, to build that kind of system that enables us to ultimately become one with higher energy in the universe. Does anyone else have a question? Great question, Bob. Thank you.
Stuart, hi, it's Paula.
Yes, Paula.
I know you've been asked this 1,000 times.
Well, ask 1,001.
So here's 1,001, just because it's what came up, and every time you speak, there's always a new facet. So again, about opening the heart and surrendering, and opening the heart and surrendering. Can you please talk about that 101th time, please?
Well, for the 10 million and what first time, okay? Look, if you keep your heart closed, it's closed because of tension, walls of tension it's going to ultimately give you a heart attack. It ultimately is going to create a lot of physical problems, and physical problems that we can avoid but the purpose of opening the heart is, look, I mean, it's very simple. Happy people are enlightened people. Happy people have learned everything they have to learn on the earth. People that can live with joy, with love, with compassion, with kindness. They have learned what they were born on the earth to learn, and they have freed themselves of their karma. Now, you can't be a happy person if your heart is closed. Well, your heart is closed because there's an enormous amount of tension there, resistance, fighting this thing about being happy, of allowing yourself to experience unconditional love, and allowing that child to be born inside you again. It's like I spoke a few weeks ago, I saw that documentary with the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. And the joy, the love, the kidding each other, the way they interacted with each other. I mean, they were both 80 years old. I'm not sure Desmond Tutu is still alive, but they were 80 years old. And they were like children, like children. Why? In that 80 years, through Tutu and his Christianity and Dalai Lama and his Tibetan Buddhist practice, they learned how to activate the child inside them, their heart, to keep their heart open. There was no longer fear in them about what can happen if their heart is open.
Stuart, can you talk about, you mentioned free of our karma. Does that happen in layers? Does that happen in this practice over and over, freeing ourselves of our karma? Can you talk about that?
Karma is every word you say, every activity you do in the world. And the closer you get in your activity to doing a world full of love and full of compassion and et cetera, the closer you get to working out your karma, to have learned what you came to the earth to learn. And you don't have to come back here. The soul is free to move on to the next level of where it has to learn something else, But it doesn't have to come back to be born in these ridiculous bodies of ours that create endless pain and suffering and difficulty, But it's every activity, every word you speak tells exactly what your consciousness is. And we're here to learn that. You understand, a lot of people that do, they forget that they were born on the earth and all they want to do is sit around and meditate. And they forget that somehow they have to be actively involved in the world and learn how to treat the world with love, with compassion, by being part of it. Being part of it. I mean, I always said life is the temple, not an ashram, not a church, not a synagogue. That's the place you go to learn how to truly recognize, the sacred nature of life, all of life. That's the place where you go to get the training. And ultimately, we recognize life itself is the temple. Life itself is sacred. And every element of life is one's teacher. So nothing is negative. You are learning all the time. I mean, look at this horrible thing that happened in Turkey, 35,000 people killed. A week ago, all these people got up and were living their life. And that's why I tell everyone, you don't know what's going to happen in 10 minutes. You really don't. So we have to use that 10 minutes to grow, to open the heart, to get full of love, full of joy, full.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome, dear. And that's working out your karma. I mean, the same thing with Rudy. He told me, I don't know how many times, he was going to live to 84 years old. Told me that. And he told that to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people took that for granted. And they never really got his teachings. And he also told me, don't build shrines to me. Don't feel sorrowful when I leave. He said, just learn what I have to teach. That is the best thing you can do for me. And I'm saying the same thing. He said, Stuart, if you want to free me, and I know you do, learn what I have to teach. This way, spiritual work goes from generation to generation. Does anyone else have God, good questions today. Dragging out of me stuff I think we all need to hear. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I was told earlier that people don't like to go to Zoom classes. What the hell they're missing? It's just ridiculous, the whole idea that somebody doesn't want to sit through this. And it's just insane. It's just stupid, beyond stupid, Nothing I can do about it, They don't like Zoom, right? This is not Zoom. I don't know what the hell this is, This is something, absolutely amazing what comes through. And it's because of all of you. You're making me grow. You're opening me in places that is allowing energy to manifest this way, Does anyone else have a question you would like to ask? I'm also very open to new students, people to come. I never know where a great student is going to come from. I was supposed to go to Cairo with Rudy to find the future teacher of the Aquarian age living in a brothel. You know, I mean, you never know. I asked him, where is this teacher? He said he's probably living in a brothel in Cairo. You never know where the great, you know, I mean, St. Augustine was a criminal and Milarepa was a black magician, and you never know where the greatest of them are going to come from. So I'm always open to new students. And hopefully somebody comes that, you know, along with all of you, I can pass these teachings on to. These are very important teachings. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? All right, this Sunday, there won't be a meditation. I'm having a retreat here. Actually, there'll be a lot of classes this weekend, but Sunday there won't be one online. But if you're interested in attending, there's going to be another one in April. There's already 5 or 6 people that have signed up. Please let Jennifer know that you want to come, and she'll tell you about, you know, what all the particulars are. But if you want to come, you know, I mean, if I'm going to have like 14 people, I can't fit more in my apartment. So if you're interested in coming, get in touch with Jennifer, and you're very welcome. And God bless you all, and thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. No, what is today, Thursday? No, today's Wednesday. I don't even know anymore. Tomorrow, I'll see you all. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome.